The Larry King Show is taking your calls now at 703-685-2177. That's 703-685-2177. Let the connection ring. We'll answer when it's your turn. And now, live from Washington, D.C., here's Larry.
This book by our guest, Dr. Crenshaw, contains some incredible photographs. It also contains a picture of the death certificate. The book is JFK, Conspiracy of Silence. The guest is Dr. Charles Crenshaw. We will be going to your calls in a little while, but we do want to get this full story out. All right, you examined the wounds. He's in the coffin. What did you notice?
What I noticed first, of course, was the wound was directly in the back. This little bump on your head called the occiput. This was large, almost from a tennis to a baseball size. Completely avulsed, and the hole, you could see where the brain tissue had been kind of scooped out. But what was most important was the cerebellum, the little part of the brain below, which was prominent there, and it was protruding from the wound. We've discussed the anterior neck wound there, and I looked all at the head, particularly that wound and the hairline. And what was described in the autopsy as another entrance wound that would have gone to the head wound, I never saw that, and 16 other physicians at Parkland never saw this small wound in the hairline. So we placed him in the coffin.
It was your conclusion then, was he shot both ways? Did you conclude that at the moment?
No, I concluded that he had shot from the front, but the right back wound was a side, what we call tangential. It had come in from the side, hit the parietal bone, springing open the parietal part of the temple, and all the occipital part.
Did you guess that two people were shooting?
Well, I thought there was certainly a shot from the back, from the front. And, of course, the next day we were told all the bullets came from the back.
Well, you were shocked the next day then?
Yes. Mm-hmm. It became clear-cut that this was the official version. That everyone was congratulating themselves, and that they immediately found the lone nut assassin.
Did you talk to your fellow doctors about this and say, hey, this is nuts?
Oh, we were all talking about this, because on November the 22nd, all of us at least thought he had been shot from the front.
Why didn't somebody say something?
Well, they all did, but
did the Warren Commission question you?
No, never.
Did not question you?
No. Their research was not as good as Oliver Stone's. He knew that I was in the room. The reason is I never participated in the treatise or the paper that was written about the treatment there. I felt this should have been a surgical paper, and so I did not hand in my account. And so this was what the Warren Commission went on as far as getting everybody.
When, Dr. Crenshaw, you heard about the autopsy and you heard what they said, did you ever buy the theory of a switched body?
No, I could not believe. We never turned him over, so we didn't see the back wound. But I knew there was not a little wound in the hairline. That had to have been a fabrication.
Why do you guess in your wildest dreams that the doctors in Bethesda, naval doctors, would fabricate an autopsy report?
I've tried to be as generous and as I could be. The only thing I can come to grips with is that they wanted to set aside the possibility of multiple assassins, that it could have been from some foreign power or some other entity.
But someone told them to say this.
Well, I've got to, because this was a pretty well reconstructed system to do this.
When Lee Harvey Oswald was brought in, you were on duty as well?
Yes. We were sitting in the coffee room there in the operating room. The administrator of Parkland Hospital called up there and wanted a free operating team. Again, something that never happens at Parkland. So I had the only one that was going off duty. So I took that team down to the emergency room, coupled with my senior resident, Dr. Jones. So we were waiting for Oswald.
Yeah, was he dead on arrival?
No, he still had a pulse and no blood pressure. I was hoping against hope, all of us, that we could save him. But the one thing that Mr. Price, the administrator, has always remembered, we were preparing trauma room 1 for Oswald. And I could not let him be taken into that room. So we switched, and he was placed in the other good trauma room 2.
Also, you mentioned during a break that you don't like red roses to this day.
Well, that's the aftermath. After the casket had left and I'd followed them out to the hearse, I walked in to look at the cleanup of the room, and, and remembering him lying there on the cart with the blood and tissue seeping down into what we call a kick bucket, and there were those red roses, and I don't like red roses to this day.
The roses Mrs. Kennedy was holding.
I assume those were Mrs. Kennedy.
What is the conspiracy of silence? What do you mean by the title?
I think the conspiracy of silence really goes about in the cover-up of the wounds, and that, of course, is basically the one thing that I can talk about.
That would mean all the Bethesda Naval doctors, all the people in attendance at the autopsy, were all in this.
The Larry King Show is taking your calls now at 703-685-2177. That's 703-685-2177. Let the connection ring. We'll answer when it's your turn. And now, live from Washington, D.C., here's Larry.
Here we go to your phone calls for Dr. Charles Crenshaw, the book JFK, Conspiracy of Silence, Washington.
Yes, Dr. Crenshaw, good evening. I have 2 questions. First of all, is it possible that the throat wound that you saw was neither an entrance wound nor exit wound from a bullet, but perhaps an exit wound from a chip of bone that might have been forced out the throat from the pressure of the headshot?
All right, let him answer.
I believe it was only a bullet because it was perfectly round. There was no jagged margins around it. And generally bone of that nature that is splitting off is more jagged and not obviously symmetrical.
Second question.
I've read that after being shot, Oswald was given either cardiac massage or massage of the stomach muscles by the Dallas police before he was brought in the ambulance to Parkland. From what you know of his condition, could he have survived? I've read that was the worst thing that you can do to a person in his condition. Could he have survived had that massage not been done?
No, I don't think he could have. As a matter of fact, a third-year medical student was moonlighting down at the jail and got into the hearse with him and was performing closed-chest massage. I really don't believe that this could have helped. The only thing could have helped would be a modern medical system as we have it today with intravenous fluids and airways, things of this nature.
With what we have today, Oswald might have lived.
It might have.
Kennedy would still have died.
No way.
San Jose, hello.
Good evening. Good to speak to you, Dr. Crenshaw. I've got 2 questions. Number 1, could you enlighten us in any way about the so-called magic bullet, which allegedly, at least, was found in Governor Connolly's cot? Anything you care to say about that? And the second question is, it would be easy for anyone to criticize you for not speaking out earlier. Of course, I wish you had. I won't do that, but I'm still very upset, I guess, that you did not come forward in 1978 when the House reopened the investigation. Could you discuss that, please?
Well, first, the magic bullet is the most famous scenario, I guess, of any. The bullet, as posed by the Council of the Warren Commission, was quoted as being a copper-jacketed 6.5 millimeter bullet arriving at 2,000 feet per second, hitting the president in the shoulder, going through the fascial plane of the muscle on the right, up through the throat, going through the windpipe of the trachea, and out through the throat. Then it traversed to the governor of Texas, Connolly's back, going into the 5th rib, breaking that, comminuting it, then going through his right wrist, leaving 6 to 8 fragments, and then into his left thigh. There is still a fragment there in his thigh. We don't do Doc Adams anymore and drop the bullet there. The exploration was made. There was no problem with his femoral artery. So that is the magic bullet. And then this pristine bullet that had no blood, hair, or any material on it was found on a cart in Parkland. It was supposed to have been the cart that Mr. Connolly was pushed up to the operating room in or on. And I don't think I could elucidate more than that.
You don't buy it?
No.
Why didn't you come forward for the House investigator?
They were using the same artifacts and same exhibits as the Warren Commission did.
Did you volunteer?
No.
Our guest is Dr. Charles Crenshaw. One added note that you might find interesting just on a personal level, but my heart surgeon, Dr. Wayne Isom, who did my bypass surgery, was at Parkland that day, and he knows Dr. Crenshaw, and Dr. Crenshaw knows him, and he attended to Governor Connolly. Niagara Falls, hello.
Well, I want to follow up on what the last caller asked, because that was going to be my question. I believe what you're saying, and I also believe that there was a conspiracy. But you are a doctor. You have an oath, and you are in a position to be believed by many people, where a lot of people who were theorizing things, you were there. I don't forgive you. I don't think you're a very good example for students. I want you to address that.
All right. Take it easy, Doctor.
The only way I can address that is with the hypothesis that was put before that the autopsy, which we now know was feigned, all of the other physicians had testified that this bullet could have been possible. And as I've been in surgery 30 years, and anything is possible with a bullet. So after they finished saying, yes, it was possible, that was the end of their testimony.
Are you sorry you didn't?
No. I think now is the time to bring forth the effort to change and get a real investigation and support the Boren-Stokes resolution.
Denver, hello.
Hello, Larry. I'm a longtime student of this crime. Your co-author is a man named J. Gary Shaw, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I've got a book by him that called Cover Up, and I was a little disappointed in it, particularly the last chapter, where after going through a lot of the facts and factoids, whatever, he ends up by saying Jesus Christ is the only answer, and rails against atheists and secular humanists, and why isn't the Bible in public place?
All right, let's get through this. What's your question?
Okay, my question is that there was a show that a lot of the defenders of the Warren Report like to quote, the Nova show, with Walter Cronkite, in which 4 of your Parkland doctor associates were shown these autopsy photographs and x-rays, came out saying, well, I guess I was wrong. I guess the shots did come from behind. My feeling is we cannot trust the integrity of...
I'd wish you'd ask a question. If everybody calling in makes a speech, what's your question?
Okay, my question is, do you trust the integrity of these of the autopsy photographs?
Okay, Doctor. Please, no speeches.
No, I do not trust the integrity of these autopsy photographs. I got to see these for the first time in 1991, and there, I guess that was a real impetus to me to come out and to say what I've said. They were totally fabricated. The right rear of the president's head was gone when he left Dallas, and on the photographs, which you can see in the book, and which are the autopsy photos of the Warren Commission, it's plainly put back in.
We go to Jacksonville, Florida. Hello.
Yes, Dr. Crenshaw, I read your book. I thought it was very good. There was a gentleman by the name of Paul O'Connor. He was a hospital corpsman at Bethesda, and his job there was to remove the brain from the deceased. He says that he removed the body from a gray military shipping casket, and it wasn't a body bag. Yet he also states that there was no brain, and that there were only pieces of macerated brain amounting to about half a handful. What do you have to say in regards to that?
Well, obviously all I can talk about is my personal observation. When he left, he still had the left part of his brain intact. There was also part of the right brain intact, the frontal and the front part of it. All he had lost was the parietal part of the temple and the occipital lobes.
And the clothes were also in the casket?
Clothes were folded, and ties, and all of his artifacts were placed there except his watch, which were given to the Secret Service.
Did you examine the shirt?
No.
We'll be back after these messages.